7 Days is a game that throws its players into a nightmarish world where the dead roam the earth, ghoulish creatures lurk in the darkness, and the only goal is to survive. But how exactly did things turn out this way? Right now, there isn't much concrete information available to explain how civilization fell, how the dead rose, and our story began. However, there are a few environmental clues that could help to piece together the complete lore of 7 Days. While roaming the desolate and haunting world of Navezgane, picking through derelict homes and defunct businesses, you may stumble across a few clues that help to paint a picture of the world before the fall and what may have transpired to cause it. We can see in a few daily news newspaper clippings that Navezgane was in the grip of a wide-scale epidemic. This clipping suggests the transmission of the infection was rapid, though through its designation as an epidemic, was also somewhat contained around the time of the collapse. Local pharmaceutical companies clearly attempted to curb the spread of infection, as can be seen in billboard advertisements dotted around the landscape. A form of cure had been developed called Z-Side, most likely a contraction of the term zombicide, and was touted to end the infection. Evidently, attempts to curb the outbreak were unsuccessful, and unrest was inevitable. Despite efforts to evacuate the citizens of Navezgane through militarised checkpoints, it seemed like drastic measures were called for to contain the spread of infection. In further newspaper clippings, we are able to see the glowing image of a mushroom cloud, accompanied by the headline "Nuclear", with the further context of the headline obscured. Though we can see the initial letter of the second word, most likely completing the sentence "nuclear detonation" or something to that effect. Similarly, in a newspaper clipping pinned to a notice board found in locations across Navezgane, we can gain the following contextual clue to help piece together events preceding the complete collapse of society within Navezgane as a whole. City vanished in blast of atom bomb. Seaport went up in smoke and flame, witnesses say. 40,000 foot dust pyre over Pacific Ocean. This clipping clearly refers to a coastal city, most probably in the region of California, as you would be hard pressed to find the coastal town or seaport within the landlocked Arizona, home of Navezgane, suggesting the infection had either begun in or had jumped to neighbouring states. But what exactly was the cause of the initial outbreak? Was it simply an act of nature brought on by a viral flu outbreak, the outcome of sinister and covert experimentation by multinational pharmaceutical companies, something that came from beyond the stars, hitching a ride on a rogue meteor, or the unforeseen after effects of a nuclear exchange between nations at war? Exploring some of the in-game locations can offer up some interesting new leads that might help to explain the initial series of events that may have caused the outbreak, as well as efforts to counter it. The most notable location is Higashi Pharmaceuticals' headquarters within Navezgane, leading us to one of two possible conclusions. Higashi Pharmaceuticals was the epicenter of the outbreak, brought on by their dangerous and careless genetic engineering, or Navezgane's last line of defense and hope to finding the cure for the flu that was devastating it. Within the Higashi Pharmaceuticals building, there are a number of floors dedicated to the research and development of its products, from DNA testing, chemical labs, and even facilities for human trials. These human trials are the key factor in determining whether Higashi was desperately attempting to find a cure for the outbreak in the last days before the collapse, or was instrumental in the development of the first wave of infected before the spread became unmanageable. On this level, there are numerous test tube style environments with experimental undead subjects contained within. Though the motive for these experiments is still undecided, without further clues, it's hard to come to a conclusion about what Higashi was up to exactly. To delve deeper into their motivations, we can dig deeper into the connections that Higashi may have had in Navezgane, starting with the home of Dr. Karen Higashi, presumably the CEO of the company and key figure in the events leading up to the fall. Descending beneath the luxurious home of the notable doctor, you may be shocked to discover a large and extensive covert laboratory equipped with multiple lab environments body disposal facilities, and space for a roster of support staff. Similarly to the human trials level of the Higashi Pharmaceuticals building, this facility also has its own test tube containment tanks, though there is something particularly interesting about the two hidden deep below the ground. On each of the two tanks, there are the symbols for what appear to be the Greek letters A and O, most likely referring to the phrase Alpha and Omega. Alpha and Omega is commonly associated with the New Testament written in Greek, referencing the beginning and the end. This again leaves us with two conclusions. Was the laboratory beneath Dr. Higashi's home the origin of the virus that would go on to cause the collapse of the state of Navezgane and the rest of the United States? Or was this Higashi's final attempt to somehow reverse engineer the virus against those already infected? The beginning and the end is a vague statement that could be taken both ways. The beginning of an infection and the end to a civilization, or the beginning of a retroviral to end an infection. Another possible connection to Higashi is the prominent pharmacy brand found throughout Navezgane, Poppin Pills, which holds a few secrets of its own and I suspect to be the public-facing arm of Higashi. While exploring their manufacturing and distribution factory, we can also discover another environmental clue that may link Poppin Pills to Higashi Pharmaceuticals. Within the factory, further containment tanks can also be found, suggesting that Poppin Pills was also involved in similar experimentation to Higashi in either originating the epidemic in Navezgane or conversely trying to help prevent it. It's entirely possible Poppin Pills was the company producing the flu inoculation advertised in the billboards we've seen previously, with Higashi being the cause for the outbreak and the two sharing no connection at all. Regardless of the motivations of Higashi, it's evident any attempt to contain or cure the infection had failed. Following an order to evacuate and the bombing of West Coast seaports, Navezgane became the next target for drastic military intervention. Piecing together a few more environmental hints surrounding the fate of Navezgane before the fall, we can assume locations like the Wasteland suffered heavy shelling in an attempt to curb the spread of the epidemic. Littered with rubble and the remnants of bombed-out buildings, and overshadowed by a skyline of dust and smoke, the Wasteland seemed to have taken the brunt of the bombing, with the surrounding radiation zone being a possible last-ditch effort to contain the infection by creating a buffer zone between Navezgane and surrounding areas, trapping any survivors, alive or dead, inside its boundaries. Factoring in all the evidence we've seen so far, I've decided to piece together a timeline of events that I believe is most likely. Higashi Pharmaceuticals creates the zombie virus flu that becomes airborne. The flu begins to spread throughout Navezgane and into neighbouring states. Local pharmaceutical companies begin distributing a retroviral to the public. The military are deployed to set up roadblocks and checkpoints, leaving Navezgane. A local evacuation order is put into place to extract the uninfected population. The Red Mesa site is cleared to target seaports on the west coast to prevent international spread. Breakdown in law and order results in Higashi Pharmaceuticals moving underground to continue their research. The military begins shelling of Navezgane to curb the infection. Nuclear weapons are finally deployed in the areas surrounding Navezgane to create a buffer zone and seal the infection inside. And with that, Navezgane had fallen. But where does this leave the player? Awakening from unconsciousness, the player character is immediately met with two pieces of important information that will help them piece together some of their story so far, as well as the current state of Navezgane following the collapse of its societies and structures. The player will find two notes upon waking up in the unforgiving world of 7 Days to Die, from two mysterious and currently unknown characters, one of which is the shadowy Baron of Navezgane, the Duke, who has since been revealed to be holed up in a former casino and using his newfound power to extort and oppress the few remaining survivors of the region. Just a friendly reminder that you pay on time, every time, or there will be consequences. Next time we won't be so nice. Thanks for the gear, but you still owe us. See you soon. The Duke. In his note it's implied that the player is in debt to the Duke, for reasons unknown, though it is likely the Duke is extorting both the player and traders surviving within Navezgane for tributes in a similar fashion to The Walking Dead's Negan. With his face also prominently appearing on the adopted trading currency in the world, it's possible the Duke has a stranglehold on the newfound economy and is regulating it ruthlessly, forcing survivors into a protection racket fitting for the type of antagonist that calls a casino home, which would helpfully explain the protection payments traders will reference when interacting with the player. The player also discovers another note, though from a more affable figure known as Noah. Dear friend, the wasteland can be an unforgiving place. I found you naked and left for dead with no supplies. It looks like you crossed the Duke in a bad way and you could use some help. Enclosed is a short guide to help you survive. If you complete it, we just might take in a new citizen. The White River Settlement. It's real and it's safe. Peace be with you, friend. Noah. From which we can infer Noah is the leader of an alliance of settlements known as the White River Settlements, with its main settlement being Noah's Camp revealed in the Alpha 21 developer live streams. We can also safely assume that White River is an alliance of survivor settlements, as we can see their flags being flown at some of the trader outposts around Navezgane, as well as taking on mission contracts for them too. As for where the story will lead or in fact end, we don't currently know. Will the Duke offer his own tasks and challenges to the player, creating difficult decisions as to where their loyalties lie? Or will the Duke be the final obstacle for the player to overcome, to create a truly free post-fall Navezgane for themselves and the White River settlements? I guess only time will tell, but for now, that's the entire lore of 7 Days to Die so far. If you enjoyed that video and want to see more, why not check out one of my other videos on screen now.